But you should be able to run your business in a way that, like, you don't have to be there. That's
Mm-hmm.
all of our dream. Like, you don't need to be there. That's what we should be, being the architect of our business, not the builder, And so, and he's like, oh, I was thinking maybe I was just going to, like, I'll just end the year, maybe give it one more year. And I'll probably just not do it anymore as I'm having to put so much into it. And I was like, or what if we just have some conversations and get your business in the right thing? And if these are your expenses, and this is the person you have to hire to enable you to do this political stuff that you need to do and be working, doing your other things
Mm-hmm.
that you enjoy, what does our cost have to be? And he's like, well, nobody would pay that. And I was like, well, maybe you lose half of your clients, but you're actually making a profit. Who cares? You're working less, but now you're making more than zero.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, I had not thought of it that way. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what most businesses are like. Well, I priced it with my competitors. Look, I have all these expenses and I'm just going to go out of business. But what if we can, like you were saying, like back into it? What if we think of it separate? Like, we've got to list those expenses, and we have to list those expenses inflated.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. I'm your co-host, Andy McDowell, founder and owner of Generate Your Value, providing self-leadership, leadership, and business coaching services for corporate executives and business owners.
And I'm Zach Levy, your other co-host. I run a nationwide financial service business with my wife, Megan.
Together, Zach and I have the intention to bring you tips, concepts, ideas, suggestions, stories, and analogies from A to Z, which will help you to grow your personal brand and leadership skills in such a way that joy, happiness, and success, as you define it for yourself, are achieved.
We hope to use our gifts, talents, and experiences in business and leadership to generate value in your life. And with that being said, let's move to our topic for today.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. My name is Andy McDowell, one of your co-hosts. Unfortunately, my partner in crime, Zach Levy, is not going to be able to join us today. There is a slight chance that he pops in the middle of it. I don't know. I haven't heard from him, so if he does that, don't be surprised. But if all of a sudden you hear a third voice and it's like, who's that? Oh, that's Zach. From that perspective. But it's the beginning of the year, and I thought a great way in terms of conversations to help you either as an executive or a business owner is to start talking about the year. And what is 2024 going to look for you? What kinds of things should we be paying attention to given the situation with politics or economics or business or whatever it may be, taxes? From that perspective, that these are things that we should be paying attention to as we're laying out our good strategic plans or business plans for our upcoming year. So I've brought in a guest today who specializes on the financial side to help us with that conversation of what things should we be writing up on our whiteboard that we should be paying attention to. And her name is Andrea Bell. She comes to us from the great state of Utah, out there on the West Coast. Trying to think of the Salt Lake sports teams. I'm drawing a blank.
We got the Rockies. We got the Real soccer team.
Yeah, you got a basketball team, I believe.
And the Utah Jazz.
And the Utah Jazz, yes.
That would be our biggest one, yes.
Yeah, I think there's probably more college stuff in Salt Lake between BYU and so forth, as opposed to pro sports. So let me read Andrea's bio, and then she's going to talk a little bit about herself so we can get to know her even more beyond what the bio says. So Andrea has over 20 years of experience in accounting, helped hundreds of business owners save millions of dollars in taxes, which is her specialty. She's the CEO of Profitability, a full-service accounting firm, specializes in the full picture of accounting. She loves helping businesses scale and grow, which we're going to get into, to be profitable money-making machines. She's passionate about making sure her business is in alignment with the kind of mom she wants to be and loves helping other women learn to do the same. She's also the founder of Thrive, a women's business community that supports women entrepreneurs to take their businesses to the next level. She provides courses and events to help inspire and empower women to create the kind of life and business that they want without sacrificing their health, their finances, or their relationships so they can find the freedom and purpose they desire, right? Finding that balance. She's a mom of three, a foodie, DIY junkie, and lover of all things self improvement. Loves traveling, being outdoors, and being with her family. So, Andrea, welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. Thank you for taking your valuable resource called time to come spend it with myself and our listening audience today. So, as always, I'm a big believer in storytelling and the power of storytelling in people's lives as well as in leadership. So, we always take the first 5 or 10 minutes to let our guests kind of tell their story, wherever they want to start, help our listening audience get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. All right. I'm like, that leaves it pretty broad. I'm like, where do I go with that?
But however you want to do it, what do you want people to know about yourself, right?
Yeah. I think, and I think back like to where it all started was my parents were super encouraging. They encouraged us to chase after all the dreams we could ever want. And the biggest thing I remember from my parents is one day, I was really in love with horses and I really wanted horses so bad. And we had looked at a horse and somebody else had bought it. And I was super bummed out. And I was young, maybe 7. And remember my mom and dad sitting me down distinctly and like looking me straight in the eye and being like, we know that you can do, and have anything you want, anything you're willing to set your mind to and work hard at, like you can have it. And they said, we will do everything in our power to help you do that. And I took that quite literally. I did everything that I could think of.
That's awesome.
Dance, I loved horses. I loved school. I loved just lots of different things. And I feel like that gave me the I was going to say motivation, but it gave me the courage to try lots of things, knowing that they had my back. And they were like, we might not be able to give it to you in the most expensive way. We're not going to buy you a brand new horse trailer and the most expensive horse and private riding lessons like some of the kids had, but we will do everything in our power to support that. And horses is a really expensive hobby. And so
I know. I got a lot of horse people in my life here, northern suburbs of Atlanta, so I know all about it.
That's awesome. They're awesome. And so I really appreciate my parents letting me pursue that dream. And doing that is a huge part of who I am. But it also encouraged me to work hard, to go after things that I really wanted. And I always wanted a college education. And I always knew deep down early on that I'd be a business owner. So I didn't take your common like English class, and I wasn't reading To Kill a Mockingbird. I was reading How to Win Friends and Influence People or The 1 Minute Manager. And I was obsessed from like the second I got into those classes. And so I always knew I would do something in business. I just didn't know what it was. And so knowing that my parents believed I could do anything I wanted, I was like, well, I want to be a mom, but I want to be a business owner too. And so it really guided and directed the kind of career that I chose, knowing that I wanted something that could be both. And so accounting was the perfect fit. I loved math. I loved numbers. I loved business. And so accounting, I knew I could do in the way that I wanted. I could work part-time. I could work full-time. I could work only during the tax season, or I knew I could find a way to possibly work from home. And so my career has taken lots of different shapes and sizes over the years. When the kids were young, I didn't work a whole lot. If I needed to, then I worked a ton during the tax season, and that really blessed our family for the rest of the year. But I didn't have to go to work 9 to 5 to be able to get that better paycheck. But then as the kids got older and went back to school, I was like, oh no, I want to do my own thing, and I always had a side gig all those years, like doing friends and families, books and taxes. And I've just always been obsessed with businesses in general, and their story. and how I can help them pursue their American dream. I just love it. I love that you can virtually make money doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
I am constantly coming home and telling my kids like stories of business owners that I met and what they're doing and how much money they're making, like doing these crazy things that they're really passionate about. And it's so exciting. It's so exciting and so motivating. And so most people don't love the numbers side of it, but I totally geek out about it. Like I just love numbers because I watched businesses over the years fail because they didn't pay attention to their numbers. So even though you were excited and motivated and you got this great idea, if you're not paying attention to your finances and those numbers, then ultimately you'll run yourself out of business. You'll run yourself ragged, number one,
Mm-hmm.
trying to do it and kill yourself in the pursuit of that dream. And it's a really great dream. And so if you can implement processes and procedures that help you keep track of the numbers, or bring on people that can help you do the numbers because you just absolutely hate it, which most of my clients do. They're like, I don't know, I don't care. Their eyes glaze over. I
Yep.
can tell it's just they don't want to deal with it. And that's mostly because of they don't have the bandwidth to do all of it. And so giving ourselves also grace to say, I don't have to do it all, and it doesn't make me a failure as a business person. It just gives me the grace to focus on the things that I'm really good at, and let's hire or outsource or
Mm-hmm.
do something with the pieces that you don't love that you still need in your business. So my business has kind of gone from just only taxes, and then realizing like crap, like I'm really missing the boat as far as how to help these people really be successful. And they can't be successful if they don't pay attention to their numbers through the years. So then it morphed into, taking more of a bookkeeping perspective, making sure their finances and their financials were in order all year long so they can really make better business decisions, and educated business decisions based off of real time numbers. And then that really allowed them to run their business in a more effective manner, not an after the case, like, oh no, I owe all these taxes and I have no money to pay them, but being able to know what those were early on. And then now, as I'm working with higher income people and higher tax brackets and stuff, we're really focusing on tax strategy, really implementing early on all throughout the year. What are some things that I can be doing that are going to save me in taxes that put more money back in my pocket? We're not just giving the government tips and here, I'd love to overpay you by 20, 30 grand. Are there things we can do throughout the year that then put us in a better position that we're keeping our money, because we're going to do better things with that money. So I want my clients to keep as much of their money as they can, spend money in the ways that benefit them, but not overspend, especially for taxes. So
were either one of your parents entrepreneurs?
my dad always talked about it. And I think that is one, if I think about like looking back, like why I always knew I would be a business owner is because he was so excited about it. I remember him talking about it our whole life, but he would do pieces of it, but never really had the resources or the ability to totally go all in. He still had to provide for his family,
Mm-hmm.
And so that was sad, a little sad to me to watch him never fulfill his dream, because he's a wonderful human
Mm-hmm.
being. He's an amazing person. Like he would have been a fantastic business owner, but he chose to provide for us and do all those things for us. So I always knew I wanted to be successful enough to be able to help them out because of how much they gave to us as kids. So he kind of planted the bug, but never really did it like 100%. Like he had a couple side things that he tried, but
Yeah, I was just curious whether your interest in business at such a young age was just an innate thing for yourself, or whether you had some kind of influence in the home from somebody that
mhm.
kind of steered you in that
Yeah, I think that
direction.
definitely, I think he like
Yeah.
planted the seed. And then I just always, um, yeah, but I think some of it was just innate. Like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
an innately like weird person that wants to put myself through these things.
Did
No,
you
I love it.
did you have a favorite book when you were growing up before you left college? Did you have a favorite business book that's kind of made influence on your life and your career?
100%. It was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Mm.
Like life changing. Like, and I've like bribed my children. I'm like, I'll give you $50, $100. What do you want? Just
Uh,
read it. Just read it, you know?
yeah.
And
My dad
I
did.
trained.
My dad did the same thing on Milton Friedman's book.
What was that one?
Well, he wrote. I'm trying to remember what the title was. It was famous book about capital markets
Okay.
and capitalism and so forth. A lot of people are now kind of saying it's kind of like Jack Welch. At the time, Jack Welch was like the it person, and now the time has passed. History's not writing things well for Jack Welch, and the same thing about
Hmm.
Milton Friedman in his book. But the book that made the biggest influence for me was as a college student that I picked up from my dad was In Search of Excellence by Tom Peters.
Oh, well, I haven't read that one. That needs to go
Yeah,
to my gotta read this year.
it's still a very timely book, even 40, 50 years later. He coined the term management by walking around.
Hmm.
He's a big proponent of get out of your office and desk and go sit down with your people and understand what's going on inside your business and where can you improve quality of service or quality of product and those type things
Hmm.
to be seen and build a brand. Branding wasn't really talked a whole lot back then, but his big thing was about how can you be seen as an excellent company
Hmm.
back then, and what are some things you can do to um, do that in the marketplace. And it made a big impact on me about trying to live a quality life as well as being a participant in helping to build a quality company
Hmm.
throughout my career.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. I love books. Like I said, I'm like obsessed with anything self improvement. I don't know if
Mm,
that's what it's called anymore, but um, but I love like learning and growing, and so that's awesome that your dad encouraged you to read that book one day. Hopefully, one day my kids they love reading, but not self help books yet.
no, I kind of developed a love of reading back in around college. It wasn't a big one in high school, and I kind of learned a lesson. We used to in my school system, you had to outside of class read in English classes, read a certain number of books, and then do a schedule time with the teacher after classes to sit down and do an audible book report or have a discussion with the teacher about the book. And
Oh, that's
and the
awesome.
stuff they were feeding me, I had no interest in. It was just a chore
Hmm.
for me because they're reading Greek mythology and all this stuff I just had no interest in. And then one summer vacation in high school, my mom said, "Well, let's go down the." We were on vacation in South Carolina at the time, so let's go down the road, find a bookstore, and see if we can find a book you think you might be interested in, a piece of fiction. And I
Hmm.
found a fictional book that took place during the Civil War and couldn't put it down. And the big light
Awesome.
bulb lesson that went on for me was you got to find stuff that you're passionate and interested in, and then you just kind of soak it all up and read about it. And that's where my love of reading finally started. Was you got to find stuff you're interested in, not somebody forcing something down your throat you have no you have no
Hmm.
interest in whatsoever. It just turns you off from reading, and you don't learn or understand that you have a love for it because it's something you're just not passionate about. So big life
Yeah.
lesson for me.
That's awesome. My dad, that reminded me of a story of my dad always took us to the bookstore every
Mm,
year or every quarter, I don't know, but he was a avid like reader and learner, like everything that like he needed to do, he'd just go learn how to do it. He'd buy a book. He'd buy a book on the
mm-hmm.
car or the engine or, whatever he
Yeah,
needed to
I'm the
do, he
same
would
way.
learn it. And
Until
so,
YouTube
you
came
know,
around. Now it's all over on
mhm,
YouTube. How do I
now it's
how
easier.
do I fix this thing? Or YouTube is
Yeah.
just a wealth of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I love that he like had that passion for learning and
mm,
ingrained that in his kids too,
yeah,
yeah, he would let us just go crazy. Like when I was obsessed with horses, I got horse books and horse training books and barrel racing books, and then when I was obsessed with business, then I got those kind of books. And so, yeah, it was good.
Well, I appreciate you sharing things about yourself for the listening audience. Let's dive in the business. As you talked about in the green room before we started recording, I'm going to open the floor to you and let you talk about what you think from a financial or tax perspective. What should executives or business owners be paying attention to in 2024? I have a few questions too to ask you that I'll kind of
Okay.
pop in here or there, but I thought we'd start off by letting the expert talk instead of the talking head on the other side of the screen.
You're a wealth of knowledge for sure. So I would rather listen to you talk, One of the biggest things that is affecting 2024 is this new BOI requirement that business owners who start in 2024 have to fulfill within, gosh, now that I'm saying it, I'm like, is it 30 or 60 days? But if your business was in existence prior to 2024, you have a whole year to fulfill that requirement.
Oh.
And that new requirement is just requiring you to report if you have a majority interest, anything over 25%, majority interest in any business. And so it's capped. If your business is 5 million or over, or has over 20 employees, you're not required to have that done. But you are going to have to do that. And that's not a tax necessarily related thing. That's just a business owner thing. But I think most tax and accounting places will be able to do that for you for an additional service that they offer. Or you can do it on your own. But it's kind of new. Like not a lot of people are experts in it. So I've been doing a lot of research on it, but still waiting for more things to be coming out to help us know more, like what, is this going to be long term? Is this something that they're going to be like, never mind? I think in essence, they're trying to keep people from money laundering and stuff. But I'm like, I don't know. Our small businesses are not the ones who are going to be doing that. So I don't really understand the requirement. I feel like those
is that being done at the state level or federal level, or
it's federal?
It's federal.
Yeah, it's federal. It's going to be required. And the
are they going to be asking the states to collect that information and pass it on to them? Or
nope, the business owners are going to be required to file this form. I believe it's going to be annually. And like some people are like, oh, I don't want them to know that about me, And so it is kind of invasive. And so we'll see what happens. The people who had money had bigger lobbyists and they got away with it. Anybody over 5 million isn't required. And unfortunately, that's when it hurts the people who can't really afford all these extra things, these small business owners, people running their businesses.
I mean, businesses have to file and register with the state that they're based in. I would think the federal government could just work with the states to collect that information because the states already have it, right? Through the registration process.
That. It's on our tax return too. Like in order to get your K1 from your businesses, with K1 just reports your portion of the income from whatever business you're invested in. Your K1 has
depending on how you file your taxes.
And maybe, there are some, sneaky ways that people get around those sort of things, and that's what they're trying to avoid, I guess. It's just people being dishonest. Unfortunately, people are very dishonest, but the majority of business owners aren't. So it's unfortunate. But so I would watch for that. It's going to be a really hefty penalty, like per day penalty if you don't file on time. So
wow, I haven't heard anything about this.
I know. It's even been not really. I reached out to even some other peers in my industry, and they were like, "Oh, I had a training on that yesterday, but I fell asleep." And he's like, "Let me do some more research."
So the acronym is BOY.
BOI.
BOI.
Business owner interest, I believe. I wasn't planning on talking about it, so it's pretty new.
And you have to have over a 25% interest in a business to do it.
Yep.
Or requirement.
Yep. Anything
Okay.
you own 25% or more on, you have to report it.
Well, listening
And
audience, I'm learning something right along with you here. I hadn't heard a darn thing about this.
I know. I'm curious. I'm very curious to see if it sticks around. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it's up and running. They just barely got the website up. So yeah, and I can get more detail and share that with you that you can share with your listeners, where to
Yeah,
file
please
and
do,
those.
because we'll put it at the. I'll link to it at the bottom of the blog post for this episode, where we
Okay.
always put linkages to the guests and their businesses and so forth at the bottom. Anyway, we'll just add it to the list.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be good information for people. Like I said, because it's not going to be something maybe your tax accountant's not going to ask about. Business owners need to know about it so they can ask
Yeah.
about it and make sure they're qualified. And this is like usually the time where most businesses start, right? It's a new year. We're excited. We're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pursue this business I've always been wanting. And so if they are starting it early in the year, like they've got to be on top of that within the next, 2 to 3 months. And so knowing that allows you to be able to be prepared for that. So yeah, I'll get more information and put it in some sort of PDF
Okay,
so it's
that.
easy guide.
That's one item. What else should we be paying attention to? That was pretty much a whopper
I know
right
that's a
at the
big one.
beginning.
I know that's a big one. I just can't think of anything. Early in the year, I'm just always like encouraging people to keep their books better, keep better books. Like anytime I'm grabbing things, it just delays, number one, the process. If your
Mm-hmm.
books are a mess, it delays the process of getting your taxes done. It delays the process of that anxiety that's hanging over you. Like, how much taxes am I going to owe? Because they just haven't kept good records. So being on top of your records, whether that's yourself, paying an outsourced company, hiring a virtual assistant, getting a company like ours that can do it for you. There's so many different options depending on where you're at in your business journey. But it is very important. Like I would invest in a software for sure. QuickBooks is the industry standard, but there's other ones that are
Mm-hmm.
cheaper like Zero and some other things that are just allow you to do it really easily. And then a lot of AI companies are coming out that are doing it. I don't necessarily, they're okay for intro businesses. I don't recommend that for a business that's actually up and running. You need a person to look and guide you in the direction that you need. But early on, like those softwares work fine if you're not willing to do it, and don't want to do it. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing I'm pushing for my clients. If you're an S Corp, the biggest thing I see at tax time is if you are filing as an S Corp, maybe you're a single member LLC that your accountant told you you need to be an S Corp, you're required to pay yourself wages. And so if you're not paying yourself wages, you're making that S Corp in essence invalid. And if an auditor came back and audited you and got rid of that S Corp status, it would be financially detrimental. They're very, very good tax strategies. And so the government knows that, and they require you to do one simple thing is pay wages. So I would say if you're not doing that, get with a payroll company, get with an accountant and ask them what amount of wages do I need, because we don't want you overpaying wages either, but you don't want to not pay or underpay wages and put that S Corp in jeopardy. So that's kind of the biggest thing I'm getting with my clients who haven't quite, done it and got their payroll set up. I'm like, get it done, so you're in compliance.
I have something I want to compare notes with you
Okay.
that I've seen in my coaching. So let's talk startups
Mhm.
in business planning. Uh, a mistake I've seen with business owners looking to do a startup that kind of gets them behind the eight ball per se is that when they start budgeting or doing financial planning, looking at their business in the startup. I'm going to use an analogy here. So in the game of football, everybody likes to look at the offense, right? Who's the quarterback? Who's the running back? Who's the wide receivers? Because they're the ones scoring the points. That's where all the magic is and the attractiveness, where all the attention is and everything. And on the business side, that's about the money coming in. That's about the product and the service and the marketing and the splash and all that stuff. And that's where they like to do all their focusing on. In the game of football, the defense is your expenses. It's your cost of having a football team is you got to throw defensive players out there because your opponent's going to have an opportunity to run their offense, try and score points against you, right? So it's the cost of doing business to have a football team is you got to have the defensive side, right? Well, on the business side, that's expenses. It's okay if you want to hang that shingle outside your door and say I'm in business, you have a certain amount of fixed costs that you have to spend just to be able to put that sign outside your front door and say I'm in business. And it's not splashy, it's not, right? And so they get all wrapped around the revenues and the marketing and the product and service, and they're not putting any thought into the expense side. And all of a sudden they launch and they think they're ready to launch and put that product or service out there. And all of a sudden they start getting into the processes. They have clients coming in and the wheels are coming off the bus per se, because they don't have things in place that they should have. They weren't thought through. They got more expenses than they thought from their plan. And all of a sudden now they're behind the 8 ball when it comes to their business. And what I try to encourage them to do is to look at it from the standpoint of, going back to the game of football, is put your defense out there on the field first. Don't even think about the offense yet, right? What's that foundation, those fixed costs that you need to start the business and put that shingle, that sign outside your door and say you're in business. And when the clients start coming in, you can execute on your product and service and deliver a high quality product service to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And build up from your expenses. Okay. If you have a profit target, here's your foundational expenses, your variable expenses based off, per customer, here's the variability. And if you have a 10%, 15%, 25%, pick a number of profitability you want, that's going to drive what kind of revenues you need to be bringing on a monthly basis to hit those targets. And then that can lead to your marketing numbers. What kind of marketing channels do you need to bring in enough leads? What's your success rate in sales going to be? It's going to drive those revenues in and cover all your expenses and hit profitability. And so it's like a house, right? You have the foundation of the house, and that's your expenses, your cost of being in business for whatever industry or business you're looking in, and start building up from that till you get to, how many leads do you need to have? How many of those need to turn into sales? If you need X number of leads, is TV or paid ads or social media or whatever is your best marketing channels to get those leads and bring in the business so that you can hit your profitability targets. And tell me, is that ring major bells in your head because you're seeing the same thing, or is it in other areas
I'm shaking my head the whole time. I'm like, yep. That's what they do. Yep. That's exactly what all my business
They get enamored with people walking through the door with big dollar signs on their chest, and it's the offense.
I had a really great conversation with a client just the other day, and I think you price based off of, like, you're calling like competition, like what are they charging? What can I get away with charging? And I'm like, no, and they're like, we try and be 10% under what our competition would be. Or they started with the company and they know how much people pay, and they're like, I want to be a good deal. So I do my pricing based off of that. So I was talking to my client and I was like, I am actually super concerned about your business this year.
What's your business model? Are you going to make it up in volume, or what? How are you going to do this to hit same profit targets that your competition is doing?
Yeah. And how do you know what your competition's expenses are?
Right.
And so he's been doing a lot of stuff with like politics and different stuff that's kind of taken him away, so he's like, well, I'm kind of thinking, and he's had to invest money into his business to keep it afloat. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm concerned about that. And he's like, well, I knew this year would be bad because I was really focusing on that. um, and I said, but you should be able to run your business in a way that like you don't have to be there. That's all
Mm-hmm.
of our dream. Like you don't need to be there. That's what we should be, being the architect of our business, not the builder. And he's like, oh, I was thinking maybe I was just gonna like, I'll just end the year, maybe give it one more year, and I'll probably just not do it anymore because it as I'm having to put so much into it. And I was like, or what if we just have some conversations and get your business in the right thing? And if these are your expenses and this is the person you have to hire to enable you to do this political stuff that you need to do and be working, doing your other things
Mm-hmm.
that you enjoy, what does our cost have to be? And he's like, well, nobody would pay that. And I was like, well, maybe you lose half of your clients, but you're actually making a profit. Who cares? You're working less, but now you're making more than zero.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, I had not thought of it that way. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what most businesses are like. Well, I priced it with my competitors. Look, I have all these expenses and I'm just going to go out of business. But what if we can, like you were saying, like back into it? What if we think of it separate? Like we've got to list those expenses, and we have to list those expenses inflated, because we're not going to think of anything. If it's 75, round it to 100. If it's 95, round it to maybe 125. Give yourself some cushion, because there's stuff you didn't think of that it's going to cost you
Mm-hmm.
to do. And then, like you said, put in that profit margin and offer it at that. If it doesn't sell, if you're way too high priced and you don't already have a client base like my client does, if you don't already have a client base that potentially some of them are going to stay with you because they love you, if you're brand new, then you've got to find a way to decrease those expenses. You can't
Well,
just decrease your price and keep all those same expenses.
it's not necessarily a bad thing, though. I mean, if you're higher than the competition, are you delivering more value?
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be your
Yeah.
business model, right? I'm going to be seen
Mm-hmm.
as the top of the line because I bring more value in my product or service than what the average Joe, if you will, that's my competitor, is out there and charging, and therefore that's how I want to position myself in the marketplace. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily a bad thing.
Not a
It
bad
depends
thing.
upon
Not at
where
all.
you want to be in the marketplace. As
Yeah.
the leader, seen as the highest value in what you're delivering, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And
Mm-hmm.
you can get the profitability by not having to sell as much volume.
Exactly.
But you've got to
Yep.
do the proper marketing and so forth to educate the marketplace as to why you are the highest value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love that. Yeah, I don't think that it is a bad thing. And that's what I was telling my client, is that like you provide a great
Mm-hmm.
service. Like we love working with you. You're more responsive. We're not waiting forever and ever like the big box stores. You fit us in, you come take care of us. So why not charge more? I didn't know what, it's a flooring company, and I'm like, I didn't know what my floors cost when you quoted me. I didn't even get a bid. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you would have priced it to where you made a decent profit, I don't care. Like you're in business to be in business to make money,
Yeah.
And so people that are not wanting you to make money, just want something for free, are not going to actually appreciate that service anyways. So we'd rather just not
Well,
have them as a
and
client.
another thing I bang on the heads of my clients about that are looking to do a startup, or they're only 6 months into their business or whatever it is. I say, I want to see your business plan. The very first thing I'm looking for is a section that's called assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what? Assumptions? Like, yeah. What assumptions do you have about your business or the marketplace or whatever that you're building your business plan off of? Because the number one thing you need to be doing in your first year is either validating or invalidating those assumptions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you invalidate an assumption, you got to turn on a dime on your business plan with this information you've gotten that you didn't have before, that your
Mm-hmm.
assumption was based off of. You got to do some tweaking to your business plan and adjust on the fly to take
Mm-hmm.
care of that new information you didn't have before that you now have that invalidated your assumption.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is the very baseline for your books. You know what I mean? Like you've got to have,
Mm-hmm.
what are you projecting? What are you assuming is going to happen? And then comparing that to actuals. What's happening week in, week out, monthly, quarterly, daily,
Mm-hmm.
in those early stages, like you should be looking at your numbers every single day. What's working, what's not working in the three areas of your business: your production, your profits, and your promotions. Like, are your promotions working? Is your marketing working? Do you have the right people in place? Do you have the right processes and procedures in place? It might not even be a profit issue, it could be one of these others, but you've got to focus on those three main areas. And do you know what numbers are driving those areas and how to improve
Mm-hmm.
them if not? And I think that's the most valuable part about your bookkeeping or having your accounting in order, is not just so you can look at the past stuff. I love past stuff. It gives us really good
Mm-hmm.
information about trends and
Yep.
how your business is working. But what are the leading indicators? What are the driving things that you need to do?
What
Like
are
you were
the
saying, like
trajectories?
what's the marketing that you have to do to get
Mm-hmm.
that? Not just, I hope it works out. Like, how many people do you need to bring in
Mm-hmm.
to get that
Yep.
number? And when you back into those things, it actually seems like it would be more overwhelming, and people avoid it because they're like, I'll never be able to reach it. I'm just going to work as hard as I can. I'm put my head down and work as hard as I can and try and get there. But once you back into it, you're like, holy crap, I only have to have 10 clients at this price. Like, I can do
Mm-hmm.
that. If I talk to 10 clients in 1 month, 30 days, every 3 days, I got to bring on a new client. Like, it just becomes so much easier for your brain to have a plan,
Yep.
and work towards it. And that's kind of what I was going to say. Like, the biggest thing I think right now is what business owners should be doing is making a plan, making a really good plan. What are you trying to accomplish at the end of the year,
And
at the end of 5 years,
monitoring it
at the
monthly.
end of 10
What are
years?
your key performance indicators?
Yeah.
And some of those should be based off of what your assumptions are,
Oh, yeah.
that you're
hmm
paying attention to every month, so that you can change on a dime if you need to. If you start seeing uh, that data coming in on your KPIs based off of your assumptions, that you go, wow, we blew it.
Crap.
We blew it in this section, and we got to adjust. We got to bring expenses
Yep.
down so we can lower our price or whatever it may be,
hmm
to
And
get
that's my
yourself
biggest.
profitable.
Yeah. The biggest thing I love when I'm working with business owners trying to improve their profitability. So, your profitability is how much money do you have left over after you made that income, paid all your
Mm-hmm.
expenses. The money at the bottom is your net profit. That's what you get to take home. That's what makes it worth it to run these businesses. If we're at a zero, it's not really that exciting to get up every day,
Well,
after you've
you
done
can pay
that.
all the bills, but you don't have any profit to reinvest in the business to help it grow, to scale it, or
Yeah.
whatever your
Or if you
business
have
goals are.
investors. Yeah. And if you have investors, that's how they get paid back.
Yep.
If your profit is not in a good position, they're not going to be happy with you,
Yep.
and they're not going to invest in your next project. And so, really watching that profit. But the thing I love the most is it doesn't take huge changes. It doesn't have to be like, I got to get rid of 50% of my expenses and increase my price, all these things, little things, but like multiplied. Like, I like people to focus on at least three numbers they want to improve by 10%. What if we just increased our sales by
Mm-hmm.
10%? What if we decreased our um, what if we decreased our expenses by just 10%? And then what if we increased maybe our prices on current clients by 10%? Like, that exponentially grows your business, it grows your profit,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just like one thing only does it like 10%. I just gave myself 10%. That wasn't helpful. I feel like I got to do these big changes, but it can be really small changes that are not overwhelming if you're paying attention to those numbers. And if you're improving year after year like that, like, your profits are just going to skyrocket. And so, it's a really easy thing to do. And I'd love more business owners to actually do it, to actually know and understand their numbers and be able to, make changes. Like you were saying, like, you got to turn on a dime. Like, when
Yep.
things are not working, you don't just keep doing them. You need to change what you're doing and um, make a change, like, immediately. As soon as you have that information, like, this isn't
Well,
working. This month was really terrible. We need to change.
every business has one or two major things that they've got to pay attention to. Like my business at Boeing was a service based, and it was labor. It was, when did I need another person technical person to work projects. And so I had to work closely with the sales team, looking at what potential projects could be coming in and looking at the labor piece of it, and deciding when I had enough business on the plate in the future that I could hire another person and keep them busy.
I love that. I love
Right?
how you said that you needed to work with those other teams. So, like, if we think of, I call them the three P's: profit, production, and promotion. If those three areas of your business, if we imagine them like three circles, if they're not working together, the profitability of your business actually ends up being in the middle. And the more we can bring those areas together and working together, that middle area is the overlapping area that becomes your profitability. So if our sales team is in line with, because if you sell a bunch of stuff and you can't produce it because you don't have enough people, like you were saying, like that hurts your business, you're not going to be profitable. But if we're all on the same page, then we can really guide our business to be very profitable. And in the early phases, like, we're everything. We wear all those hats. We're going to be the sales team and the production team, and we're going to be the accountant. But as we grow bigger, like, who are people that we can put in those places that help grow it for us? Manage that. But then now you're keeping track of where's everybody on track, and are those numbers improving in all the areas, and then that helps our business grow exponentially. So,
well, I couldn't go to my senior leaders. I had to justify hiring. Right? I can't get on a conference call and go, well, I have a gut feeling our business is going to grow. It doesn't fly. I had to bring out charts to show that our business was going to grow and be sustained. If I just had a blip, then I'm going out and hiring a contractor or something to help me with a blip. And they had no problem with that. But if I could show that my project load was going to be sustained over a year, 2 or 3 years, then they would allow me to hire people to come in because I could justify looking at projected sales and projects and what kind of labor I needed. And I had that data. I could justify the reason why, and I was more likely to get a sign off on it. Unless there was some kind of high level major hold on hiring that was outside of my control and my boss's control from that perspective. But if there was no impediments at that level, then yeah, you sold me, on your projections and everything. Now we'll go hire somebody, but let's go work and make sure those projections come in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So
then you know what you have to do.
Then the profitability is not going to be an issue because you brought in the business that you were projecting. So that once again, I had to go back to sales and go, okay, I'm hiring staff. You can tell the customer we're going to be able to deliver for them based off this, but you got to work extra hard to get that business in.
Yeah, exactly. And that just that's huge. That's huge. Most small businesses don't run like that, and that's what to their detriment for the most part, And
so we're running close out of time. If somebody's looking for a financial services partner relative to accounting, bookkeeping, and those type things, taxes, what things should they be looking for when they're out there having conversations with potential partners in that area? What kinds of questions should they be asking to make sure they're going to get a quality service from a partner?
Right. Number one, I think our world is becoming so digital, that unfortunately, like, that's how we see if somebody liked or did well. Reviews are a great place to start. Find them online, see what they've been doing. Are they an expert in their field? Do they understand your business? Sometimes accountants can be very specific, industry specific, and maybe you want somebody like that. Or is it just, is it just tax preparation? Is that what you want? And they've got good reviews, then cool, but if it's more of a full service thing, you probably need to have a conversation, make sure your personalities align, that they match, because most of my clients that come, they're like, oh my gosh, my CPA is so bad. I just can't tell what he's thinking. He's so dry. very helpful, but oh, just thank you for talking to me about my business and what my goals are. No one's ever talked to me about that. Or, talk to somebody who's actually going to be in your corner, who's actually excited about your business and driving it forward instead of just, mass producing some things. Again, that might be the right fit for you in certain situations. But if you're really looking to grow, having those conversations, most places offer a free consultation to see if you guys fit. Maybe you're not the right fit for
Mm-hmm.
our firm because we don't do that, or you need a specialized person and they can help refer you to that person. But yeah, reaching out, looking for reviews, asking around, and just making sure that maybe how long they've been in business or different things to look for, but just looking for somebody who mostly just has your best interest at heart,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's business is in a different place of to what that might be. So
Yeah, I think it's important for the business to think the way my brain operates. I'm always thinking about the strategy level and tactic level, right?
mhm.
So if you're just looking for somebody to come in to just do the numbers, give me all your data and I'll spit out all the reports and forms and everything you need, and that's it. To me, that's kind of the tactical area of your industry.
Yeah,
Strategy level is about taking those numbers and having conversations and offering advice and guidance and so forth about what to do with the business overall at the strategic level with what these numbers are telling us,
yeah,
right?
I love that
So
you explained it
so
like that
you're
for sure.
you're kind of having to deciding what you want out of your partner, and maybe in the beginning, from a cost perspective, you just need the tactics part just to check the box per se.
Mhm.
But maybe you want to grow into that. You want to keep the same partner. You could have that conversation to say, I just need a tactics part right now, but why I want you to be a partner is I eventually want to get into the strategy piece, but I don't have the budget yet to do that. But I don't want to go jumping around finding two or three or four partners down the road that can provide that. I'd rather come in with you guys. Let's have a partnership together. And as I grow the business and my budget increases, then I want you to get more involved in the strategy side of what all these
Mhm.
numbers are telling me and helping me to make decisions and so forth. If that
Yeah,
comes
I
at a
love that.
higher expense with y'all.
Yeah, that's exactly how we work. Like we just start with just the compliance, just the bookkeeping piece. Like if that's all you need and all you can afford, like we're happy to provide
Yep.
that piece for you. And then as you grow, next step is we got to scale that business.
Mm-hmm.
We need to increase those profits. Like now we're here, those profits are okay. Can we improve those? Let's increase those profits. And then that next phase is like you said, that strategy of how do I grow this business to either sell or be able to pass it to my kids or just provide some sort of like passive income as I age out or get interested in
Mm-hmm.
something else. What are those pieces I need in place to make that business accomplish my long-term goals? And so those, like you said, like those are just more in depth, the tax strategy next, and then, just more in depth, more time, more involved. And come at a higher price, but they're worth the investment because the savings you're going to have or the growth that you're going to experience working with an expert is just going to be exponential to what you can figure out on your
Mm-hmm.
own. So yeah, like I love that. Like we do tend to do that, grow with our businesses, as they grow,
That
they need more services, they need more help, they need more guidance. And that was going to be what I would say, like when you're looking for a person, like you can get a lot of people to do that data entry,
mm,
like that's not a hard skill. They can enter it. But then because I do training of bookkeepers and teach them how to do bookkeeping, and we bring them on and let them intern with our company and they can do the work, but do they understand what those numbers
mm-hmm.
mean once it happens? And then once you have those numbers and they understand it, do they understand the tax implications of those
Mm-hmm.
numbers and how that affects you? You know what I mean? So it's just you're getting more and more knowledge and expertise as you move up. So deciding, like you said, if you're at the lower budget, like pick somebody who's maybe just that data entry piece, and it's still beneficial to your
Yeah.
business, but then scale is needed. Yeah.
Well, if people wanted to engage with you and your team in the future, what's the best way they could reach out and connect with you, Andrea?
Best way is they can go jump on our website. We are like updating it and making changes and stuff. So that is a little bit in construction, but it's profitabilityco.com. And so they can find us there and all of our contact information, or just email us at info@profitabilityco.com. And we would love to help them in any way. We do offer a free 30-minute consultation. We'd love to hear about your business and how it's doing and what your hangups and what your things are going well, and how we could potentially be a piece to help you in that. We would love to talk that
And
through.
geographically speaking, how far out do you offer your services?
How far out? As far, oh, we're virtual. We're 100% virtual.
Virtual.
So
Okay.
we're nationwide. And so taxes across, the US. We've worked with some companies in Canada, and we've got other people that are outsourced in other areas too. So we have the potential to potentially be global as well. But for sure, like nationwide, we can help any state that you need help in. So that's what we love. I love Zoom and all those sort of things, so we can meet virtual, in person, and get to know each other and have a relationship, but still be
Yep.
able to get the job done wherever you are.
Okay, as I forewarned you in the green room, we have one question left for you. We ask every guest here, and that question is, what do the words generate your value mean to you, Andrea?
Generate your value. Oh, I love that question. Generate your value to me, like we were talking about, like education, like just self-educating yourself, driving yourself to always increase your value. Like I'm always learning, always growing. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything as far as tax goes, or bookkeeping or different things. Like there's so many things that are growing and changing, and I'm constantly learning and looking for ways to increase my value, increase my knowledge, so that I can benefit my clients more. So I think generate your value just is, it feels pretty internal to me. Like generate that value. We were talking about pricing and stuff. As you generate your value and know your worth, you're going to have the confidence to ask for the prices that you're worth, instead of the prices that you think people will pay. And that confidence allows people to be very confident in you and what you're offering also. So I think, just constant improvement, and pushing yourself to new heights every year.
Well,
I love it.
Part of what I love about the phrase is, just like you said, it can mean about you yourself as a human being. How can I generate value in this world and in my relationships and so forth? But it also translates very well at the business level, right? How generate your value. Your, in this case, refers to your business. So how is it you're going to generate value in the lives and the eyes of your customers as well as your employees,
Yeah.
right? And develop a culture that's
Yeah.
going to allow everybody to thrive, whether it be your customers or your employees. And that's the fine line as the CEO or business owner or executive that you got to walk, is to figure out how you can do the and, not the or. Well, it's either going to be the customers or it's going to be my employees. You're doomed to failure if you use the word or. It's about the and. Where can I find the win-win between the customers and the employees? In the way that we do our business and develop our culture.
Yeah, I love that, because you were talking about that, we didn't get to it, but we were talking about how to scale, and you can't scale without people. You can't scale without those people. So
or with capital.
Yeah.
Right. We were talking earlier. I was talking about my business from a labor perspective. That was the biggest thing that I always really had to pay attention to. But I was a service-based business. You might be a product-based business where it's, people might be important, but the thing you really got to pay attention to is, I've got these big capital expenses. Like take an airline, for example. Airplanes are expensive, right? So at what point do I start buying more airplanes? Right? Where is that KPI or whatever that tells me not only have to buy more airplanes, but I got to buy them of this particular size. Well, okay, now that
Yeah.
gets into the business model and my marketing, revenue generation, and so forth. But that's a key
Mm-hmm.
thing that the executive leadership teams can be looking for before they give agreement to the procurement department to go buy more airplanes.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? What's happening with my marketing, my demand that's going to justify a huge capital expense of buying airplanes? Because
Yeah.
that's needed for the foundation of this business of transporting people and goods from point A to point B. So
Yeah.
every business has that one major thing. For me, it was people. For an airline, it's airplanes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you can't. Makes no sense to go out and hire more people, pilots and flight attendants, if you don't have an airplane to put them in, right? So usually
Yeah.
the airplane is leading or driving the people part
Mm-hmm.
later on. So you
Yeah.
got to pay attention to the thing that's at the beginning of the process. But you got to take the
Mm-hmm.
people and the labor into account when you're developing the equations and the algorithms and looking at when it's time to buy that next or add airplanes to the inventory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I digress.
Yeah,
So
I love it. I love it.
can't thank you enough for taking that valuable finite resource
Indeed.
in your life called time to come spend it with me and our listening audience and sharing your wisdom on the financial
My
side.
pleasure.
I learned something today.
Yeah.
BOI. I'm gonna be googling that
Google.
probably on Monday.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
Trying to figure out what I need to do in my business, regards to
Yep.
something that I had no idea even existed. And they only give
Yep.
you
You'll be
30 or
required.
60 days with which to do this when you're not educating people out there,
Mm-hmm.
splashing it out there on social media or whatever to allow business owners to understand that it's this new requirement out there. I mean,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have not put it online yet because I'm like, I'm not feeling like the
Yeah.
expert yet. It's so new,
Yeah.
which I do think once we get into tax season and really start seeing like these new businesses and working with them, I think we'll get, a better
Yeah, but
idea.
tax season goes in the April. And if they
I
got
know.
30 or 60 days, you got to do this. By the time tax season is over, it's like, oh, you're
You
already
could miss it.
screwed up because you didn't do this.
You could miss it. And I think, like I said, it's a hefty penalty. I didn't read the article right
Well,
before. I think it's like $500 a day. Like it's something stupid. Like
yeah,
they're
I
gonna
think they'd be
really
better off for the
penalize.
first year being a lot more lenient on this as they bring this
Hmm.
requirement in and then
I
say,
think I think they will.
okay, year
Yeah.
two, we're going to push it up to 30, 60 days because we're going to allow the first year to get people used to the idea that this is a new
Yeah.
requirement.
Yeah, and that's only if you start this year,
Mm,
the really tight deadline. But you have a full year if your business is already in existence. You have a full
okay,
year
well,
to
then there
fulfill
must be
that requirement.
front loading the information when people are going to the
Yeah,
state
I'm
and
afraid
county and whatnot to do all their
uh,
paperwork to get
the
licensed
people
or
setting
whatever.
it up on their own, like if they're doing it on their own through their state, like they wouldn't know that. If you're going to a lawyer or an accountant, like they're going to help you do that correctly. But yeah, it's going to be those people who are just doing DIY and new businesses. They're going to miss
Yeah.
it, and so yeah. Yeah, important to do that. I'll get some information out for everyone and to your listeners too.
Well, for the listening audience, I hope you got a lot out of this. Like I said, I got something out of it that I didn't even think I was going to get
Good.
with this
Good.
conversation before it started. Can't thank you enough for joining Andrea and I on this episode. Andrea, we call them golden nuggets on the show. I hope there's some golden nuggets out of our conversation that you're going to take and integrate into your business or the way you lead your business or into your life, whatever it may be.
I
That's
love
the
that.
reason why we're here, why we do what we do, to generate your value podcast. And with that being said, we'll have another great guest here in a week to bring you some more information and a new person to get to know here on the planet Earth. And I hope you have a great day, have a great week. Keep generating your value, keep that growth mindset that Andrea talked about. Read books, soak in as much information you can to maximize the value that you can generate in your own life as well as in the world. That's why we're here, to help you do that with the podcast. So Like I said, have a great day, have a great week, and we'll see you next time here on the Generate Your Value podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Generate Your Value podcast. If you find our conversations to be useful in your life, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode.
You can find me online at Instagram at _Zach.Levy, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
For information on my coaching services, visit my website at www.generateyourvalue.com. You can also find me and my company on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Simply search for Generate Your Value on those platforms.
Once again, thanks for joining us for today's podcast, and we invite you to generate your value in this world.